All right, welcome back. We have here Joe McAllister to discuss AI and esports agents. Joe, you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, you should have access to share your screen.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
he represents Insight Enterprises.
All right. Does that all look good?
It does. I'm going to hand it off to you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So thank you guys for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I do have the Twitch chat open as well. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. So I work at Insight Public Sector, part of Insight Enterprises. I'm our education esports expert. So all I do all day, every day is work with schools around esports. So I'm a former teacher myself. I was a head varsity wrestling coach, wear the Nerdthlete hat proudly. And yet always looking for new and different ways to benefit the esports community. And this topic has taken off like crazy. So really wanted to jump into this and talk about it for a bit. You know, AI is this thing that's moving very rapidly in our lives, and just understanding what its impact could be on esports in particular. So, uh, yeah, so I'll talk a little bit through. Let me make sure that works. Okay. A little bit of the evolution of AI in general, its impact, and then looking at different ways it's been kind of introduced to potentially help esports overall, and then how it could potentially hurt esports, and then just some more topics for the community to discuss around that, as I think that this is something that is going to be a real, very real in our spaces very soon. We're already using it a lot for productivity and that type of thing, but only a matter of time before something really works in the esports space. And, I'd love to get ahead of that. Um, so I'm just going to do a base level introduction to, AI in general, just in case you're not super familiar with some of it, and how big it is getting, and then dive in from there. But as always, if you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So looking at AI's growth and its global impact in 2024, last year there's just a ton of AI all over the place. The adoption rate has gone through the roof when we look at generative AI and how it's used throughout corporate America, how it's being used in or pilots in schools, how it's being used, in every asset of people's lives. Folks are using ChatGPT to do tons of things, and the education around it is kind of lacking a little bit. And there's just a ton of different ways to use AI, but it's not always the correct tool for the job, and that's what I think a lot of folks might be missing around this is, this is a tool. This is something to help enhance and build better competencies in different areas. And it's wild, all the different areas that you can go into. We're going to start talking a little bit more about agentic AI. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll explain that just real quick. Um, the idea of agentic AI is an AI built for a specific purpose. So if you just go on and start talking to Gemini or using Copilot or ChatGPT, you're entering into a large pool of data, right? So the different those different models, they use different LLMs. Some of them use the same, but it's this giant pool of data. And one method of kind of refining what comes out of AI is through prompt generation and understanding what makes a good prompt. And honestly, I'm going through a lot of training around that right now as well. The more specific parameters that you give AI, especially generative AI, the better the response will be. So, trash in, trash out, like that old phrase really applies to AI. So if you give it very general things, it's going to come back with very general answers, and possibly hallucinate, if you're familiar with that term of, you know, it providing answers that sound very correct, but are actually not based in anything. So this famously happened with some lawyers who were trying to come up with legal briefs around just being able to cite different precedences, and it turns out those precedences never actually existed, but they looked really good because AI made it follow the same patterns as it's seen. So you really have to give it something very specific to be talking about, and that's what I'm gonna get into today is how, when we start applying that to esports, what's that look like? Because if you just start asking all those general models right now up things about esports, they'll give you some good answers, but they'll also give you some very incorrect answers. And then it will also overestimate what it can do and what it is doing. So there definitely needs to be that human piece to it. And, how can we fit this tool into esports? I want to start with the evolution of AI in gaming because when AI was, you know, it was pretty. When I heard it for the first time, I was thinking of all the video games I played growing up, and we were like, "Oh yeah, you play against the AI all the time, right?" And people coming up to you asking like, "Do you know what AI is?" It's it's pretty interesting there. Uh, yeah. So I just check in chat real quick. Um, but yeah, so looking at this, early on, it was very much AI as far as, just strategy simulation. You had computer models doing chess, you had, all these different algorithms simulating human behavior, those types of things. We take a step up as it learns to be an enemy to us, and being able to follow algorithms, be able to step into, the early stages of AI and machine learning. A lot of data science it started being become prevalent, especially the 2000s, when we start seeing AI starting to help with a lot of different aspects of gaming in general. So whether it's better fights in boss games, whether it's better storytelling, better simplification of coding so that more can be done. There's a lot of different things that have happened and are happening, especially on the game development side. And so the natural question, as this is being something that's used more and more throughout throughout gaming, is how does this start getting into the competitive scene? So that's where we're gonna go next. And I think I'm just seeing, okay, I'm just seeing Dr. Seth's replies. So I don't think I have any questions currently. So anyways, looking into how
Joe,
can, yeah,
Joe, I'll track the questions at the end, so if you
okay.
you could just go on through, and then
Okay.
I'll ask them for you then.
Yep, sounds great. Okay, so um yeah, looking at how AI can help esports. So a lot of this stuff is very developmental. There's a number of different folks doing different things. When we start looking at ways that this can help, there are a number of people doing different types of projects and very small pilots here and there. So real-time feedback during matches, this is something that people really strive for. There's a number of folks who are trying to do this. I think Razer has a project out there. This is, in my opinion, trying to put the cart before the horse, but being able to help with coach or player development, providing it real time in practices. And then we'll talk about real time in match. So that'll be something we talk about a little bit later when we get into like the ethics and whatnot. Um, but being able to provide that real time feedback. Now, having dove into a lot of AI and how it's working and those types of things, this presents a pretty big challenge because you have to have the AI understand video, which can be very difficult, and have it understand that the positioning really matters. So like games like Rocket League, for instance, the feedback needs to be positional in a three-dimensional environment. And that can be very challenging for AI, where a lot of AI is based off of LLMs or large language models. And when you have a text input, so a game like League of Legends, for instance, there's a ton of strategy and understanding that's all in text space. There's some pictures that might or enhance that text, but that is very text-based. So a game like League of Legends is a lot easier to get off the ground as far as a real-time feedback because a lot of that is text-based and you can actually get text that shows you like, hey, you should do this build, or hey, based off of averages of that champion in this particular situation, they're probably going to invade. Those types of things. We're not there yet with them. A lot of the products that are out there right now are very much alpha, beta type products that are might be pushing themselves as more than that. Um, but being able to provide this, this real-time feedback, I first want to get to the point where we're able to um, answer questions that come up throughout practice, right? And that's one thing that I've really been working towards is providing a resource that allows us to, you know, hey, my student says that, or, my player says that they're having a really hard time against Jax in the top lane. How do I, how do I help them with that, right? In a professional scene, you'll have a professional coach. They'll probably be able to handle that. Um, that being said, if they were a jungler or if they were a support character, they may not understand that as well. And so a little bit of help might go a long way. But as we start going down the ranks to amateur to collegiate to K-12, when you're looking at high school or even middle school, the level of knowledge goes down significantly. So can we get AI to help with the actual just strategy of the game, right? Being a good teammate, being a team player, communication skills, those are all soft skills that that coach has to do, right? But if we're looking at, especially in a lot of middle school and high school programs where we have one source of truth with a teacher and we're asking that teacher to understand 5 to 6 titles, it's not scalable. It's not something that we can do. And unfortunately, we're not at the space right now in that area where we have multiple stipends for multiple teachers to teach multiple games. Also, I was working with NACAD recently. Um, you know, they made a really good point is, in football, basketball, all these other types of coaching scenarios, we are on, fourth or fifth generation of people playing those games. We're not that way with esports, right? Especially when games change or genres change. We get the battle royale format out of nowhere. We've got this MOBA type shooting format now. Like 10, 20 years ago, those things did not exist or weren't as nearly widespreadly played. So we don't have just coaches wandering around. So being able to provide that kind of uh, assistant coach essentially. And then looking at post-game analysis, so being able to, instead of real-time feedback, taking VODs and being able to analyze them. There are varying levels of degrees of this. I think AIM Labs has a product out there that really talks, specifically to first-person shooters. And when I mentioned before agentic AI, right? So when a company like AIM Labs takes uh, a very specific thing and makes an AI around it, it can be way more effective than these larger models that we have out there. Utilizing them, you're going to get a lot of slop, for less lack of a better word. So when we look at what we can do with it, that's the next step is that post-game analysis, right? So we want to be able to work with the student and the coach, and then be able to then take their own gameplay, static as it is, put that into a bot, get some training, or some trading items out of it, and then we want to get to real time. Um, with predictive modeling, in theory, we should be able to, look at opponent behavior, start developing trends. I think this takes scouting to the next level when we start looking at other teams. And there's a lot of data out there right now, but to have that live and served up to you in a meaningful manner, it could be really interesting what that looks like. Would make players make decisions that maybe they wouldn't. I like to think of the when you have the Amazon stats that pop up on like Thursday Night Football or in a La Liga game or Premier League game, percent chance of going in, percent chance of winning. Those types of things are all calculated on the back end, served up live. We could see that in esports. It's really used more on the broadcast side for traditional sports, and that's another thing we have to answer when we start talking about esports, when uh, we want to make sure that we're having a level playing field. The other piece of it is being able to have that equity, access, as inclusion. So, it may not be as steep of a learning curve to get into some of these games, or to start up a program, whether that's at the K-12 level, collegiate level, or even amateur level. Uh, Being able to have AI to help with a lot of that knowledge base means you can get going a lot easier, and be able to provide a lot more access to a lot more different folks, and then be able to understand, as we build out these agents that are specific to esports, and meet the needs of those of esports programs. We can start looking at folks like Inclusion, getting all of their information into an agentic bot, so that you can, oh, I have a student who needs the Xbox accessibility controller. What do I need to put together for them to be able um, to play? That kind of information would be very consultative in figuring that out. If we can start democratizing that information as well, we can make this more accessible to more students throughout, the entire the entire space, whether it's, amateur education, whatever space you're looking at. And we get into some of the issues that we could run into, and admittedly, this is a little bit longer than the positives, just because there's a lot of stuff that there's some there's a lot of things to think about when it comes to this. Um, Yeah, I love that. Okay, so sorry, I took a peek. I apologize. Um, so like AI cheating, I mean, cheating hasn't, you didn't need AI for it, that type of thing, for it to happen. Um, but AI makes it easier, and so what's considered cheating when it comes to AI. Anything that obviously improves the player from a software perspective should not be allowed whatsoever. But then, like, if it's a software overlay and it's not actually part of the game, it's not adjusting the game state, is that allowed? Those kind of things are something that we really need to get into. And like, is it then effectively come down to a clicking contest versus, actual strategy and being able to do those things? Or do we create this meta that's manipulable, so that we can move it, and people know what the meta is, and therefore can possibly do things against them? Um, yeah, the integrity of scholastic leagues, because there's less oversight on those than in professional matches and even amateur matches. So what does that look like? Those are ideas that we have to, make sure that we're paying attention to. Um, Also, when we start looking at, if teams start really relying on AI, are they going to run into issues where they'll be less skilled potentially? Critical thinking and problem solving not needed as much, because they're letting the AI do a lot of that for them. So it's really interesting. I mean, I feel like it really parallels, automated driving. So like, some people don't care to do it at all, and would be happy to have, that kind of support, that kind of driving. And then there's other folks who, you know, they 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 like to feel, they think that they can make a difference, an edge in it by not using, that type of thing, which is honestly very, I would say AI in esports is behind self-driving, and self-driving is not great. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at in this space right now, in my experiences. Um, when we start getting into data. So, students, I don't know if you guys know this, gamers will just download anything if they think it will give them an edge. So can these things be used nefariously, for identity stealing, like, even DDoS attacks, like that type of thing. Lots of privacy issues that come up in specifically education. And then, because I am running low a little bit, um, you know, is this going to have a major cost to it too? Are there going to be the haves and have-nots, right? So even the gap gets wider amongst folks. Um, these are all things that I'm thinking about all the time. I'm actually working on an AI assisted or an AI coach bot that I have it working for League of Legends. I'm working to get it to work for Rocket League, but the idea is to put it at no charge out there to schools to use to resource up their programs because I want to avoid these issues, right? I am blessed to have the opportunity to do those things and actually have access to a lot of AI engineers internally at our company, and they're all about trying to make this more accessible for folks. So just looking at AI overall, there's tons of opportunity here. I think, I think Dr. Seth and team have done some things around the ethics of AI in esports, and I love that we're talking about this now, and not waiting for it to pop up in a major tournament or some kind of major issue arises, and we're already trying to, circle around this topic, especially around the ethics piece of it. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions, sir. Think if you have any. Okay, so Omnic AI. I haven't worked with them directly. I did some research into what they're doing. Um, you know,
Joe, if you can
yeah.
reread the question,
Oh
please, because
yeah,
people can't see
I
that, and
forgot.
then
I
answer
forgot.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, you told me and I forgot. Okay, so have you worked with Omnic.ai? That is who I worked uh with last year, Omnic AI dot or Omnic.ai if you want to check that out. So yeah, I haven't worked with them directly. I know that they've got some things going on that are very interesting, but that's a lot of what this space is right now, and I love that we're getting around it with ethics. So I can't talk to them or talk to their stuff very well because I haven't been hands-on with it. Question number two is, do you believe real-time feedback in AI is ethical, considering fair play, why or why not? So I've actually brought this up to a number of coaches. So I go across the country talking to esports programs for literally everywhere. I've even worked with programs in um, Afghanistan, Dubai, Panama. I've consulted with folks in Australia and Japan, and this is something that's top of mind for me. And one coach really put it in an interesting way. I don't know if I have a hard opinion on this right now, but when if there is some tournaments, some competitions allow you to have a coach live in the chat with the participants. So if both teams had equal opportunity to use AI, then how is that different from having access to a coach? Right? Now, I don't know if I agree with that, but it was a good point, I thought. And if we don't have that access in a match, then maybe, AI real-time feedback is not allowed. Um, the real rabbit hole we go into is like, okay, it's either allow or not allow, and then if we do allow, how much, right? Because they could get way down into the details, right? Like you've got a 75% chance if you buy this item right now that you'll win the match, right? Those types of things that it could get down and dirty into the details, especially if there's APIs opened up by the developers themselves. So, it's interesting. Um, as a purist, I tend to be like, yeah, I don't want it real time. I'd rather have it helping with the practice side, and I would personally rather see it as a tool for feedback, for helping with practices, getting some of the I don't want to call it monotonous work, but some of the repeatable work that's done by a director or a coach and free them up to work more one-on-one with their teams. That's what I would love to see AI be utilized as. Um, Okay, so third question is, and should one consider the potential bias and hallucinations in models, especially open models? Yeah. So if you take one thing away from this, make sure that if you are using open models, you really have to be very good with your prompts, and even then, you will have potential bias and hallucinations. Um, the agents that I'm talking about, the one that I'm working on and trying to make it free is I try to take as many different potential sources of information. So I've got 12 different sources that make up the brain of the bot essentially. And I use the phrase bot and agentic AI interchangeably. The AI people will get mad at me for calling it a bot, but it's the easiest way to understand it. Um, so when you're trying to look at that, the bias and the hallucinations, that's why you make it an agent, is so that you can curb that as much as humanly possible. Um, so that you can really make it work. So I was doing this in Copilot Studio. Any of those offerings from, I think ChatGPT has an agentic if you pay for it, and that type of thing that you could potentially put that through. And I plan on just revealing like once I have it working on everything. So video is one of my big challenges right now, and I'm working with a number of AI folks on that. I plan on making all the back end open and putting it out there so other folks can repeat it.
If you got about 1 minute, if you want to just read that last comment
Yep.
and then give your final thoughts.
You got it. Where the performative part of competition is technical thinking, yeah, what you're saying now, fine for training, but not great for fair play. Yeah, totally, I totally agree with that, but I mean, that's not, I would love the community to come together on, kind of a consensus around that because we do, especially when we're playing digital matches, it's hard to enforce. So we gotta, be all on the same page. But yeah, so I think AI has a really interesting place in esports, and we're going to start seeing it more and more throughout and permeating different areas of it. I just, make sure that you're being very skeptical and make sure you understand the back end before using any of those types of features. So,
All right. Well, thanks so much, Joe. We really appreciate you taking your time and sharing your expertise in this presentation. We have coming up next, Tobias Schultz and Nipo Nethelfeller, University of Agder. I'm sure I just slaughtered his last name. From centralization to adaptive pathways, rethinking governance for the Olympic esports games. So stick with us. Continue to engage with the chat. Joe, feel free to jump on Twitch and respond to any other comments within the Twitch chat there. And thanks so much. Definitely helped us think about, I hadn't really thought about the de-skilling angle of AI, which I appreciate your insight on that. So thanks very much, Joe.
thank you guys.